Next up, we have setters, which work much like a getter, where we use the set keyword in front of some sort of, well, what we call a setter function. And this allows us to provide a mechanism to update a property and treat it like a property. It will look like a property called radius, but we can intercept and add some logic in. For example, this setter, called radius, expects a value. Whatever that value is has to be positive. We don't want a negative radius. So if you set it less than 0, we'll throw a new error. Otherwise, we will actually update the underlying underscore radius property. Now remember, this underscore is just a convention. That means this is a private thing. Don't touch it yourself. We need a way to store the radius, and this is, with what we know so far, the best way. If we don't want someone directly touching the radius, we put that underscore, and that just means please go through this radius setter to update it. So I'll show you an example. I'll just copy this one in. We'll try running this, and I'll make a new circle. See, technically, I can always just update underscore radius, which I shouldn't do because that underscore tells us developers, leave it alone, it's private. So instead, I have this radius setter. I don't call it like a function or a method. Instead, I call it like a property. So I'm going to update radius to be 23. And if we look at c dot underscore radius, it has been updated to 23. So when I do this line, c dot radius, make this a bit larger, equals 23, it's calling my radius setter function. It's passing 23 as the value. So it looks like I'm just directly updating a property. That's the whole point of a setter. But behind the scenes, this whole thing is running. This function is running. There's logic. So if I try and set radius to be -10, I get an error. And if I look at my underscore radius, it hasn't been updated. So we use setters when we want to provide a mechanism for someone to update something like it's a property, but have some logic behind the scenes. So let's do another example. Let's imagine that every circle expects a color. So when you make a new circle instance, we want to have a color. And I don't want someone to directly access color, so I'm going to prefix it with underscore color, and then I'll make a setter and a getter. While we're at it, let's make a getter for radius. I think I deleted that. So get radius just returns our underscore radius property. Now let's do the same thing for color. So you can get the color, which is actually going to return this dot underscore color. But then I'm going to add some set logic because I only want you to be able to update color to be one of our allowed colors, like red. Let's just be super simple. Red, green, and blue are the only colors that we allow. So if you try and update it to pink or to, I don't know, eggplant or river, something that's a string, but not in this list, then we won't let you do it. So we'll add a little bit of logic, right? We'll make a setter called color. It expects a new color to be passed in. And why don't I do something like const allowed colors equals this right here. And then I'll add some logic to see if the new color you're trying to update color to be is in this list. And actually, the best way of doing this is probably to use a set. Not this keyword set, but a set data structure. I'll make a new set like that, and then I can simply check to see if allowed colors has the new color. If it does, then we'll set this dot underscore color to be new color. Otherwise, we'll throw a new error. That color is not allowed. Obviously very simple error handling here, or not even handling, but not a very good error message. But now if I make a new circle, two things. I have to pass in a color and a radius. So let's do that first. Const c equals new circle, and I'll pass through a radius of, 10, and a color of red. So now I have this, what looks like a property called color, right? It's a getter. Technically, it's retrieving our underscore color value. And then I have a setter, so I could set it to be green, and that works fine. if I look at my underscore color, we're not really supposed to access that or manipulate it, but it has been changed to green. If I access c.color using our getter, it's green. If I try and update color to be something else though, like pickles, I get an error. That color is not allowed. A couple modifications we should make. First of all, this is a sort of thing that probably makes sense as a static property, because it might be something we want to reuse. So I might make this a static property, static allowed colors equals this set of colors. Additionally, technically right now someone could create a new circle with a negative radius, right, like -10 there, and then a color that doesn't exist in our allowed colors, like orange. No one complains. Underscore radius is -10, underscore color is orange. So then we could do some basic logic in here, basically do the same thing. I won't bore you with it, but I'll just show if I wanted to use allowed colors, I could do if, I'll just reuse this logic. If allowed colors has this color that has been passed in, we'll set this dot underscore color to be the color in our constructor, else we'll throw a new error. So now if I try and make a new circle, oh, duh, I move this to a static property. How do I access this? Circle.allowedColors. Again, static properties aren't really required here, but if this is something that belongs to the class, we just want one copy of it. It's always the same across every circle that we make, across the actual circle class. We don't want it to change. We can change it, of course, but we don't need a unique copy for every particular circle. Then I'll make it a static property. So I access that on the class. And now if I try and make a new circle with a color of orange, that color is not allowed. Okay, so that's just the basic concept of setters and getters. They allow us to treat something as a property, but behind the scenes run some logic. So we can do validation or derived properties like we had with diameter and radius. Now you might be looking at this and thinking to yourself, well, you're kind of reusing this logic here to validate the updating of color, and you're reusing it down here. You're absolutely right. There's no way, unfortunately, from within the constructor to call a setter. Setters are meant to be used after an object has been initialized. However, what I can do is just move this to some sort of function, like a reusable function called, set color. So notice it's not set space color, just set color. Expects a new color. And then I'll just move this logic for a moment. Right there. If our allowed colors, so that needs to be our static circle.allowedColors, has our new color, we'll update this dot underscore color. And then in here, in my constructor, I can call this dot set color with whatever the color was that was passed in to the constructor automatically when we instantiate a new circle. And then down here, when we have our actual setter for color, I can do the same thing, this dot set color with the new color that's been passed in. And then of course I could do the same thing for radius to make sure it's always positive, because right now you could still pass in a negative number, but I won't make you watch me do that. It could be the exact same idea though. Set radius could be a function, or validate radius or something like that. So now we can try this. Let's make a new color again with a new circle with an invalid color. That color is not allowed. If I include an allowed color like red, no problem. And then if I use my getter, I'm getting the underscore color. And if I use my setter, change it to green, that works. Change it to purple, not allowed, that doesn't work. And now I don't have to duplicate that logic. I can make a basic validation function that I reuse both in the constructor and in my setter.